Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And if you grew up in the early 90s, you probably remember the golden era of Saturday morning cartoons. And one show that stood out was Darkwing Duck. It had action, comedy, and one of the coolest Disney superheroes ever. But did you know that Darkwing Duck also had an NES game made by Capcom? That's right, one of the same developers behind Mega Man and DuckTales created this hidden gem on the NES. Today, we're diving into the history of Darkwing Duck, how it was made, what made it unique, and why it didn't reach the same legendary status as some of Capcom's other Disney titles. So if you're a fan of retro titles, stick around, because we're about to take a closer look at this forgotten classic. Now, let's get dangerous.
Before Batman had Arkham, Darkwing Duck had the NES. This Capcom-developed platformer delivered tight controls, fun mechanics, and the charm of the animated series. But how did it come to be? Let's take a deep dive into the history of Darkwing Duck on the NES. Released in 1992, this game was part of Capcom's golden era of Disney titles, following the success of DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. But why did this game, based on one of Disney's coolest heroes, fly under the radar? More than just a cash-in on the show's popularity, this game had the makings of a true NES classic. But it was released at a time when 8-bit gaming was quickly fading. In the late 80s and early 90s, Capcom had a strong relationship with Disney, producing some of the best licensed games on the NES. After the success of DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale, Capcom turned its attention to another animated favorite, Darkwing Duck. The challenge? Turning a lighthearted, comedic superhero TV show into a legitimately great action platformer. To do this, Capcom leveraged one of its strongest assets, the engine and mechanics of the Mega Man series. Darkwing Duck needed to balance the humor and charm of the show with fast-paced, strategic gameplay that would appeal to NES fans who were already accustomed to difficult, well-crafted platformers. Built using elements from Mega Man 5, Darkwing Duck featured tight controls, creative enemy design, and a structure similar to Capcom's Blue Bomber. But despite the similarities, this was no simple reskin. Darkwing Duck introduced new mechanics that gave it its own identity, making it feel like more than just another Capcom platformer. One of the standout mechanics of the game was the gas gun. Darkwing's weapon had multiple types of ammo, allowing players to experiment with different strategies. Some shots stunned enemies, while others could clear obstacles, adding a layer of tactical decision-making. Levels weren't entirely linear, and players had to choose their path. Similar to Mega Man's stage selection system, each level featured boss fights against familiar TV villains, including Megavolt, Quackerjack, and Steelbeak. The game encouraged learning enemy patterns and using Darkwing's abilities effectively. The mix of precision platforming, enemy variety, and unique weapons made this a satisfying experience for those willing to take on the challenge. The game also included a cape defense mechanic, allowing Darkwing to briefly shield himself from projectiles. This added a strategic layer to encounters, forcing players to time their defenses carefully. Mastering the different weapon types, acrobatics, and defensive moves was key to overcoming the game's later stages. But with all of these great mechanics, why didn't the game reach the same legendary status as other Capcom hits like DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers? Darkwing Duck wasn't just limited to the NES. Capcom also released a Game Boy version in 1993. This handheld adaptation retained the same level structure and mechanics, but featured simplified graphics and no color, due to the Game Boy's limitations. Despite the downgrade in visuals, the core gameplay remained intact, and the game was still well received. Nintendo Power even ranked it as one of the best Game Boy games of 1993. For players who wanted to take Darkwing Duck on the go, this was a solid alternative to the NES version. At release, Darkwing Duck received positive reviews, with critics praising its gameplay and animation. The game's fluid controls, unique mechanics, and faithful adaptation of the TV show made it a favorite among those who played it. However, it didn't reach the legendary status of DuckTales or Mega Man, and there are a few reasons why. First, the game launched in 1992, right at the end of the NES era. The Super Nintendo was already the new standard.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing, feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come: the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
And many gamers had moved on. By this time, companies were shifting their focus to 16-bit consoles, leaving even excellent NES games struggling to find an audience. Second, Darkwing Duck as a franchise, while beloved, didn't have the same cultural staying power as DuckTales. Though it had a dedicated fanbase, it wasn't a juggernaut in the gaming world. Despite these hurdles, Darkwing Duck became a cult classic. Its strong level design and challenging gameplay make it a standout hidden gem in Capcom's NES library. Over the years, the game has gained a new appreciation among retro gamers, particularly those who enjoy challenging, well-made platformers. In 2017, Darkwing Duck was included in the Disney Afternoon Collection, a compilation of classic Disney Capcom NES games. This allowed a new generation of gamers to experience the title, helping to cement its legacy as one of the most underrated action platformers on the NES. While it may not have been the biggest hit of its time, Darkwing Duck for the NES is a fantastic example of Capcom's golden era of platformers. With its solid mechanics, memorable boss fights, and that signature Disney charm, it remains a must-play for retro gamers. Would Darkwing Duck be a great candidate for a remake? Imagine a modern take on this classic with enhanced graphics, smoother controls, and expanded mechanics. There's no doubt that fans would love to see the terror that flaps in the night return in style. Let me know in the comments if you played Darkwing Duck on the NES, or if you think it deserves a comeback. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into retro gaming history.